Good morning, everyone. It's September 21st, 2019. I'm Eric. I'd like to direct your attention to this article over at, the Rutherford Institute, or shtfplan.com, by John Whitehead. Now, everybody who's length of time knows I cover this guy's articles pretty frequently, simply because he thinks like I do, and another one where he's 100% correct. Now, I'm not going to read the entire article to you, but touch upon the main points. This is a quote from, Justice William O. Douglas, dissenting Colton v. Kentucky, 407 U.S. 04, 1972. Since when have we Americans been expected to bow submissively to authority and speak with awe and reverence to those who represent us? The constitutional theory is that we, the people, are the sovereigns. The state and federal officials only are agents. Now, that was the intent of our founding fathers, if you want to call them that. But, as you can see, this is not the case. It is the state that is the sovereign, and the centrally known as the federal government who has sovereignty. You do not. Well, you do, but, when you exercise it, you are dragged to a prison, a mine concentration camp, put on a starvation diet, made to be really cold or really hot all the time, and your sleep is constantly disrupted. So, it is a borderline concentration camp, people. Make no mistake about it. We who have the final word can speak softly or angrily. We can seek to challenge and annoy, as we need not stay docile and quiet. Again, this is a quote from Justice William O. Douglas. If been taught, like most people have, that we have freedom of speech in America, you can forget about that, because that's bullshit. We do not have freedom of speech. If you say fuck in certain places, like, say, a lobby of a hospital, and the cop that's standing there in this lobby, at least here where I live, hears you, they will threaten to take you to jail. And if you say again, they will take you to jail. I know firsthand. But had said that there can't be free speech for the citizens when the government speaks in a language of force. And he explains what that language is. Militarized police, riot squads, camouflage, armored vehicles, mass arrests, pepper spray, tear gas, batons, strip searches, surveillance cameras, Kevlar drones, lethal weapons, less than lethal weapons, unleashed with deadly force, rubber bullets, water cannons, stun grenades, arrests of journalists, crowd control tactics, and intimidation tactics, and what it all boils down to is brutality. That is not the language of freedom. It's not even the language of law and order. And you know my take on law and order. I mean, when you need a library to hold all the laws, you really shouldn't claim to be free. And our particular judicial code has a library. But he goes on to say that all of this is the language of force. Now, if you have to force people to follow you, if you have to force people to do what you wish them to do, it's probably not that good of an idea. Because if it was, you wouldn't need to use force to get them to submit to the idea. They would just willingly do it. But this is not the case in our current existence. And this is how the government at all levels, federal, state, and local, now respond to those who choose to exercise their First Amendment right to peacefully assemble in public and challenge the status quo. And the police overkill doesn't only happen in these hot spots like Ferguson and Baltimore or Chicago or Los Angeles. This is happening all over the place. All over the place. You recall in 2004, the Republican National Convention, where the protesters there were subject to blanket fingerprinting and detained for more than 24 hours at a filthy, toxic pier that was once a bus depot. And that did happen. That did happen. And that cost New York taxpayers almost $18 million. And it was the largest protest settlement in history. And he also uses the North Dakota pipeline there as another example where people were being pepper sprayed, beaten with batons, and strip searched by police. The college town of Charlottesville, Virginia, protesters who took to the street to peacefully express their disapproval of a planned KKK rally were held at bay by implacable lines of gun-wielding riot police. Now, in my opinion, the Klansmen should have been able to speak their minds just like the people being held up by the police. But the people being held up by police or held at bay, they had just as much right to express their disgust for these fucking idiots called the Ku Klux Klan. And they were denied that right. We're all denied our rights. Not only our constitutional rights, but our very human rights. So, after the small crew of Klansmen had been safely escorted to and from the rally by black-garbed police, did the assembled army of city, county, and state police declare the public gathering unlawful and proceed to unleash canisters of tear gas on the few remaining protesters. And of course, the idea was to make them disperse, right? So you think you have freedom of speech, you think you have a Second Amendment, you think you have a Third and Fourth and so on. You don't. These things no longer exist. So there was another more recent militarized exercise in intimidation, and this particular one had armored vehicles and an army of police drones, and it was in a small town in Georgia. I'm not going to even try to pronounce that because I will butcher it. But 600 state and local militarized police clad in full riot gear vastly outnumbered the 50 protesters and 150 counter-protesters who gathered to voice their approval or disapproval of Trump or the Trump administration's policies. Now, this brutality is dealt out by people in the full political spectrum. The police state does not discriminate. It does not. A USA Today article notes federally arming police with weapons of war silences protesters across all justice movements. You know, it's funny they should use that term, weapons of war, because right now we have a bunch of Democrat and a couple of Republican candidates here for president talking about how they want to take the weapons of war out of the citizens' hand. And I say, probably it would be a better idea to take them out of the police hands. Police are people who demand justice, accountability, or demanding basic human rights without resorting to violence should not be greeted with machine guns and tanks. But that's what happens quite a bit. A study by researchers at Stanford University makes clear when law enforcement receives more military materials, weapons, vehicles, and tools, it becomes more likely to jump into high-risk situations. Militarization makes every problem, even a car of teenagers driving away from a party, look like a nail that should be hit with an AR-15 hammer. Now, guys like me, we're not supposed to have our Second Amendment rights because we are dangerous. We might misuse our weapons, but we see the state, specifically their enforcement branch, misusing their weapons constantly. I've never misused my weapon, not once. The black produces aggressive tendencies, and this is one of the colors of the officers' uniforms. You know, and it may produce unnecessary conflict between police and the very people they serve. Serve. So anyway, this is the straight up truth. You do not have any of these rights anymore as long as they can come to your home and drag you off, steal your property, for what you say. That's just for what you say. Forget about crimes that you've committed, just based on what you say. If they can do that to you, you're not free. If they can do that to you, you are a slave. And the only way to be free is to fight against the totalitarians that have enslaved us. Now, John Whitehead says that responding with aggression, he says violence, but I'll say aggression, is playing into the state's hands. And on one level, he is correct. However, it's very unfortunate that this has got to be said again, but violence and force are the only languages these people know. They don't know dialogue. They're not interested in changing their criminal ways. They are interested in controlling you and forcing you to do whatever it is they want. One mayor characterized the tear gassing of protesters as an unfortunate event. Yep, it is unfortunate. But It's unfortunate that these overreaching, heavy-handed lessons in how to rule by force have become standard operating procedure for a government that communicates with its citizenry primarily through the language of brutality, intimidation, and fear. Now, a lot of people think love is the driving force of mankind, but really, it's not. Fear is. You're not born afraid of the dark. You're conditioned to fear the dark. You're not born with fear. It's instilled in you. It's instilled in you. One last thing here. This is what government rationale looks like. Do exactly what I say, and we'll get along fine. Do not question me or talk back in any way. You do not have the right to object to anything I may say or ask you to do, or ask for clarification if my demands are unclear or contradictory. You must obey me under all circumstances without hesitation, no matter how arbitrary, unreasonable, discriminatory, or blatantly racist my commands may be. Anything other than immediate, perfect, servile compliance will be labeled as resisting arrest and expose you to the possibility of a violent reaction from me. That reaction could cause you severe injury or even death, and I will suffer no consequences. It's your choice, comply or die. And a officer at the Los Angeles Police Department pretty much said the same thing. So, again, if these people can do these things to you, you have no freedom. Just because you can get in a car and start it and drive around and go places, that doesn't make you free. It makes you free range. And John Whitehead goes on to say here, indeed, this is martial law masquerading as law and order. So, I thought I would share these paragraphs with you, and hopefully someday people will get it through their heads that these people are your enemy. They openly call you an enemy. There's dozens and dozens of documents where they talk about the people being the enemy. And for some reason, people seem to just not care. Now, I have seen in recent weeks a promising poll where people are more and more hateful of government itself and big pharma. So that's a plus. But we have a lot of work to do to get people's minds out of the cognitive dissonance fog that and Stockholm syndrome fog that they're in. It's not an easy thing to do. It's really not. I mean, look how long I've had my channel, and look how long I've been talking about this stuff with other people. Let me do this here real quick. Oh, no, I can't. Okay, cool. So, as you know, I've been working. It was supposed to be a part-time job, which morphed into 50, 60-hour work week somehow. And my best friend, really my only friend, he's the one that I've been working with. No one else would hire me because, well, I don't obey the government. And he's awake somewhat, but even he is proud of his servitude, how well he serves his masters. And that's a good slave. And his son Travis works with us as well, and he had this Patriot bracelet, And it had the usual right-wing rhetoric on it, talking about how they will defend the republic, how they will defend the Constitution, how they will fight for the Second Amendment. Listen, who's really fighting for the Second Amendment? Who is? Now, some time ago, I watched this movie called, what was that? Damn, it's right at the tip of my tongue. Oh, it escapes me now. Well, anyway, it was set in New York, and a southern invading force came to New York, and they thought it would be an easy conquering of the North because of the gun legislation there in New York. Well, the New Yorkers still had guns, and it was ironic that it was the criminals, the people they call criminals, who stepped up and fought against this invading force. I can see something like that actually happening. Point being is, when all the law-abiding citizens have their guns taken, and there's no one left with guns other than people who are accused of being criminals, you're going to end up needing those people to defend you, straight up. So you shouldn't be casting stones at these people, because in the very near future, I mean, they're working really hard to get your rifles. They're really working really hard to get your semi-automatic handguns as well. They are working overtime to do this, and the only people who are going to be left with guns are people like me, like others you would accuse of being a criminal. So, anyway, thought I'd make a second video for the day. I doubt that I'll make another one, because it's mostly the same news that I was talking about for the last, few years. Economic collapse, food shortages, excuse me, war with Iran, this stuff. And by the way, if you believe that Iran did the attack on Saudi Arabia, I got some swampland in Florida I'd like to sell you. Anyway, till next time, kill the state, live free. What the fuck?